This time we mean it. We have a special guest. Guess who?
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. And we're back for another installment of the Palumbo podcast. I'm Dave Palumbo, joined by John Romano and our special guest today, Ameen Alai, and I don't even know how to describe him. He's inimitable Roger Stone, who keeps getting younger, John, every time we see him, by the way.
He does. He's got that master.
He's the picture. What is that? The picture of Dorian Gray? Is that what it was?
Oh, I think it was Aristotle Onassis who said you can never be too rich or too tan, which I completely agree with.
Absolutely. George,
I've been tanning. I gave up sitting by the pool. I just go in the tanning bed for 8 minutes at the gym. It's a lot quicker.
What a great time! What a great time to be alive. I mean, we are, in my opinion, on the verge of a golden age. Call it the age of Trump. It will be a golden age of peace and prosperity and security and justice in this country. It's a miracle, but it's also a testimony. This victory is a testimony to Donald Trump's personal persistence, his resilience, his stamina, his strength, his courage, his stubbornness. And I mean that in a positive sense, because he didn't just win an election. He won an election with the full force of the federal government and several state governments trying to put him in jail for political reasons, with political motives. And he overcame all of that. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to keep him off the ballot in all 50 states. They tried to, and they're still trying to, incarcerate him. Yet the American people saw through all of that, and they voted for common sense.
Do you think, Roger, and I know John had the same question because we were talking about this, do you think that there was cheating involved in this election, even though he still won, but he won by so much that the cheating couldn't, do anything about it?
Very definitely. I think you have widespread voter fraud in Wisconsin. I think you have widespread voter fraud in Arizona. I think you have widespread voter fraud, particularly in Southern California. If you just look at Arizona, it is not mathematically possible for that many people to vote for Donald Trump for president, and then drop down and vote for radical leftist man-child Gallegos, an extreme radical, a guy who walked out on his pregnant wife for some whore as a U.S. senator. So, or Wisconsin, where the Republican is leading until 4 o'clock in the morning when they suddenly find 100 votes that hadn't been counted, and they go 99% to the Democrat candidate.
Right.
Not statistically possible, of course.
Why don't they just have voter ID card? I mean, RFK Jr. had a perfect solution. If you don't have a license or an ID, you can go to the government should just give you an ID for free at the post office, and this way everyone can just show their ID. There's not a single place you can go in this world or this country where you don't have to show ID. The only place you don't have to show ID is when you vote. I've never seen this in my life before.
It really makes no sense. You need an ID to get on an airplane. You need an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes if you're stupid enough to do so. You need an ID to apply for welfare. You need an ID to get into a nightclub, but you don't need an ID to vote. But the problem is that the critics say, "Oh, Dave Palumbo, that's racist. That's racist." How? Are you saying that if you're saying that people who are African American aren't smart enough to go get a free government ID card, that's racist. That's racist.
Right.
You should have to present a fucking tax return, is what you should have to present.
Look, you had your way. Only male landowners would be voting.
No, but why, Roger? Why aren't they reforming this? I mean, it's such an obvious flaw in the system.
I think this is one of the fights that we're going to have. We have to clean up our elections. Look, it makes no sense that 30 days after the election, they're still counting votes in California, a state that's completely computerized. If the French can count 38 million paper ballots and have it done by the night of the election, but the French who can't do anything really, other than cook maybe, if they can do it, but it takes us months using all the sophisticated computer equipment to come up with totals and a final. It's an absurd to think that people are beginning to see through it. You're right. The answer is a voter ID. Let's move on.
Yeah.
We used to do it with the paper ballot. We were able to do this. How did we go backwards?
Well, we had the paper ballot, but then, frankly, we moved to a machine, a mechanical voting machine that just kept totals. Since it couldn't be rigged from the outside, so it was what it was. Now these voting machines are linked together, and even though they deny it, they're linked to a central server. And those numbers can be manipulated within the machines. Now, the machine companies say that's not true. They've sued people for saying that it's not true, but there's a huge amount of evidence that it is true. In 2016, I wrote a piece for The Hill, which was a newspaper. It was in different hands. I said, look, you can go to Best Buy and get a device for $28 that allow you to manipulate one of these voting machines because they're just unsophisticated computers is all they really are. Right. And Hillary Clinton attacked me for questioning the election process. That it was. Then when she lost, she filed challenges for a recount in Michigan and Pennsylvania. And her argument was, well, these machines can be manipulated.
Well, I want to know the answer to this. All of the conservative pundits, Bill O'Reilly, Ben Shapiro, the whole list of them, all say there is no proof, no evidence that the election was rigged, that the 2020 election was rigged. No evidence. They don't, how is it possible that all of this writing on the wall cannot be considered evidence?
Look, let me be very clear. First of all, you can't lump all conservatives into one pot.
Right.
Okay. There are different types of conservatives. Ben Shapiro is a neocon. He's more of in the image of a Bush supporter, if that's a conservative at all. They talk about conservatism. I'm more in the pro-liberty, pro-freedom, pro-health freedom wing of the Republican Party of Ron Paul and Rand Paul and Barry Goldwater and that tradition. Mm-hmm. These are different traditions. To go to your question, if you go to lawsuits filed by Kerry Lake in Arizona, and you just go to the pleadings, all of the documentation you want is there in that lawsuit. If you go to the lawsuit in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, filed by two of my friends there, Greg Stenstrom and Leah Hoops, the evidence is in those filings. You can read it. It's all there in black and white. It has links. You can go online to see it. So here's the point. In the most recent elections in Orange County, California, where they were still counting 30 days after the election and where Republican seats slipped into the hands of Democrats, more voters voted than are registered to vote. Okay,
it's not just California.
That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. So yes, our elections need to be cleaned up. But Trump was right from the beginning. It was too big to rig. Mm-hmm. None of these swing states were close. The fake news media and the Democrat pollsters, where they were juicing their polls, which you do by oversampling Democrats to get a result. I was going
to ask you that. Yeah.
So you can then point to them and say, you see, it's a close race, send money. You see, it's a close race, send money. That's what that's all about. The other thing you have going on, which is extraordinary, is Kamala and Tampon Tim Walz are collecting millions of dollars in small contributions that if you investigate them, you can figure out are fraudulent, that they are laundered money. So what happens is they go to a payment processing site called ActBlue. ActBlue turns off the requirement that you have to match your mailing address with your credit card, and you have people who give hundreds of small donations. Well, $25 ain't all that much, but if you give it 100 times, it's a lot more. If you give it, so on. So you will find people on the FEC and in the database who gave thousands of dollars to Democrats. Now you go to their home and you knock on the door and you say, Mrs. McGillicuddy, I'm Roger Stone from the Stone Zone. I'd like to talk to you about your contributions to Kamala Harris. And she says, what? I said, well, let me show you this. I mean, these are all your contributions, the dates they were made, the amount. I never gave nothing to Kamala Harris. Really? May I ask you what you do, ma'am? I'm on retirement. I make $38,000 a year. It says here you gave $450,000 last year to various Democrats. I'm not making this up. So, and now multiply that by thousands. So this is the other thing. It's most likely Soros money or some other giant donor that they're just filtering into the campaign through this money laundering operation. 19 attorney generals are now investigating this whole.
Wow. And they still overspent. Over $1 billion.
Well, I've never understood this. So Beyonce is paid $10 million, I believe it is, or maybe it's 30, whichever it is, to appear at a rally, but she doesn't even sing. I mean, for 10 million, she had at least do one song, right? But no song. Lee Greenwood goes to Trump rallies. You know how much he's paid? Zero.
Yeah.
He won't even take his expenses, which he legally could do, but he insists on bringing in his whole band and so on. He's paid nothing. Why is he there? Yeah. He supports Donald Trump. Al Sharpton, he's got a show on MSNBC. He has to book guests every day, but he charges Kamala Harris, who's he's supposedly for, $500,000 to his nonprofit organization.
Oprah too.
I mean, so the whole idea is she couldn't draw flies. She could not fill a stadium. There was no support. It was all a psyop. It was all the media telling you she was surging based on the fundraising coming in that I just explained, and also the polls that have been cooked. So what we do is we'll hire some celebrity or hot rock act or pop act. People come to see them. She'll come out and speak for 5 minutes and then say, oh, she had 50,000 people in Philadelphia or whatever it is. It's the stupidest strategy I've ever heard. And it didn't work because as soon as the entertainers were finished with their performance, most people left.
Right. Well, what I want to talk about, one of the topics I know that all of us are probably very close to is RFK Jr. and what he's trying to do. And I'm so happy that somehow he was able to work with Trump, because I was really afraid that we were going to lose him, in this election, and somehow they came together at the last minute. Do you know how that whole partnership came about?
Yes, I know, because I was deeply involved, and I know both gentlemen. I'm not saying that I negotiated it, because I didn't. I'm not saying I brokered it, because I didn't. But I respect and know the people who did on both sides. Bobby speaks for himself, and I think that first of all, I think he learned some hard lessons. They were never going to let him run as a Democrat. The party where his uncle and his father were gods, John F. Kennedy, and his father, Robert Kennedy, the U.S. Senator from New York. They were never going to give him a fair shot. They rigged the rules against him. He wanted to go head-to-head with Joe Biden in the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary. They canceled both of them. They did the full Bernie Sanders on him. What we did to Bernie, they did to him. I think he was surprised. By the way, I predicted to him this would happen. Then he decided to run as an independent. Well, in 2012, I couldn't stomach Mitt Romney because he's such a girly man that I bolted the Republican Party. Where I have a sentimental attachment. I'm a former Young Republican National Chairman. I love the party of Lincoln and Eisenhower and Goldwater, Reagan, Trump. These are my heroes. But I bolted the party to become a libertarian, and I helped Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico, who was a very credible candidate for the Libertarians, had an excellent record of tax cuts and regulatory cuts in New Mexico and job growth. And I successfully worked with others to get him on the ballot in 48 states. You have no idea how difficult and expensive this is. The laws that tell you how to get on the ballot, particularly as an independent, when you don't even have a third party, a minor party, are written by Republicans and Democrats working together to make sure it's as difficult and arcane and expensive as possible. So, and the Democrats were, even though they were trying to screw him there, they were suing him to keep him off the ballot in various states as an independent. I think it finally dawned on him that there was no path to victory. Then he asked for a meeting with Kamala Harris. He requested a meeting, and she stiffed him. Huge mistake. And then there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he was ready to talk. And he and the president had a number of meetings, and they figured out that they agreed on three big issues. One, war, because this administration is skating closer and closer to world war in both the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. Two, free speech, stopping the censorship of the social media giants, stopping the censorship of the mainstream media, just basic free speech, which the Democrats oppose. Remember, Hillary and Kamala both said people should be arrested in jail for posting disinformation on the internet.
Or didn't they create a new word, coined malinformation, which is not necessarily.
But the point is, according to who? According to them?
Yeah, who decides what's misinformation?
Right. That point is, they think that they do.
Right.
Which is an absurdity. And then lastly, I think Robert Kennedy convinced the president that we have a chronic childhood disease epidemic in this country. We have an obesity epidemic in this country, that we are the richest country on earth, but our healthcare system sucks. But more importantly, the general health of Americans in every category is going down. More cases of autism, more cases of virtually every communicable disease, and some degenerative diseases. And Donald Trump wants to get to the bottom of that. His whole argument to the pharmaceutical companies is, why wouldn't you want to know the truth? We're just going to look into these things and be sure that the vaccinations that are being recommended are safe and effective. And by the way, I will never be for mandatory vaccinations for anything. I think people have to make their own decisions about their own health.
Right.
And Robert Kennedy, who is, I must tell you, he's a good guy. He's also a very smart guy. I've never seen him. First of all, the way they censored him when he tried to run for president, CNN interviews him and then edits his interview to make it look like he either didn't say things he said or that he emphasized things that he didn't emphasize, take things out of context. Most of the other networks won't even touch him, won't even interview him. He does hundreds of podcasts on alternative media because he's got to get the word out. I've never seen any forum in which he made an assertion about anything that when challenged, he couldn't come up with the scientific study or the university study or the expert opinion to support his position. He is deeply committed to getting to the bottom of these problems, specifically childhood chronic disease, which is plaguing our country. So I think that what we have here is much bigger than it appears. It is not. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, you would think that, I mean, he wrote a book, The Real Anthony Fauci. I mean, the stuff he said in there, and I've read parts of it, I mean, if it wasn't true, he would have his ass sued off, and no one has sued him or said anything, which tells me that what he said in there was probably 100% accurate about it.
Well, I mean, it's a tremendous book. I recommend it to you for Christmas. By the way, you will find it fascinating. The real Anthony Fauci, but he documents that Fauci, when he's at I think it's the NIH, when the AIDS epidemic begins, the very specific form of rare pneumonia that male AIDS patients, HIV patients are dying from, can be treated with back trim, which is a simple medication that's been on the market since the 50s. It's effective, it's cheap, and it's effective. He would not allow it to be prescribed because he said he was waiting for a vaccination. So thousands of people died because of his desire to make money. Why? Well, believe it or not, the federal rules say that he can have a share of a company and make money off the vaccinations that he mandates. So he and his wife, not only, I think, are two of the greatest mass murderers in American history. She's also in the government. She's, I believe, at NIH. But they also made tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on the whole deal. And your tax dollars provide Dr. Fauci's round-the-clock security, which is costing something like $1.5 million a year.
Why does he need security? What's his job? He's not the president. Why does he have to have security?
Yeah, I guess he has to have security because there is a fear that the relative of someone who died at the hands of his flawed medical advice could try to kill him. By the way, I'm not advocating anything of the kind. I'm just saying. No. I think that is the thinking.
What do you think? We're the big thing now in the bodybuilding and the rejuvenation world of longevity medicine is peptides. Now there's a lot of healing peptides out there. There's longevity peptides. There's obviously growth hormone is a peptide. IGF-1 is also a peptide. What do you think about? Do you think that Bobby Kennedy and Trump might have a much more progressive view on this? Do you think this would be something that would be more acceptable under their administration?
Look, hormone therapy replacement is becoming more and more popular. It's done by licensed medical doctors. Right. I think it's only an industry that's going to grow. When they develop the peptide that gives you bigger biceps, please let me know about that.
We're getting close.
because it's my lagging body part. But the most exciting thing about
I'm sure Ameen can come up with a cocktail for you with those arms bigger.
I mean, the most exciting thing about this election being over, and I think once the transition's done and the new president is in power, is I get my life back. I'm back in the gym. Ameen has written a routine for me.
Ameen's got back in the gym too.
He's written a diet for me. I'm taking supplements. I'm all natural at this point. And he wants me to go for the Masters. I don't know. I might do it.
You should do it.
We should do it.
Wait, I want to go back to the. I want to go back.
I would have bigger name idea of anybody else who's ever competed for it.
Yeah, you will.
That's right.
I want to go back to the drugs and the media and the growers and the people who are poisoning us. So you have this kind of unholy triangle. You've got on one side, you've got the growers, the producers, the chemical companies. On the other side, you've got the drug companies, big pharma. And on the other side, you've got the media. So the growers, the producers, the chemical companies poison us with chemicals that are banned in every other country except ours. They make us sick. The drug companies then make up a drug to feed us, to get us not to be sick, which causes more problems. And then the media promotes this as the next best thing to sliced bread. How are we going to undo all of that with the massive amount of money that's being generated by that unholy alliance, on top of the fact that we have drug companies monopolizing the media in such a way that they purchase airtime to ask your doctor about Ozempic? I mean, all those stupid commercials about drugs that people can't even pronounce, and they're supposed to ask their doctor about it. They do that to dry up the airtime so that no other advertisers can get in there, so that when there is a scandal on the drug company end of it, they will not, the network news will not investigate it because they're afraid of upsetting their income stream. How is all of that going to get undone to the point where the companies and the government are not poisoning us and we're able to get healthy again? How is that going to happen?
Well, I think several steps. We'll start from the beginning. We need to reform the drug approval process, the FDA process. We know the COVID-19 vaccination had no clinical trials, none, and it was approved under some emergency provision to speed it up, and that the people who make it, the companies that make it, had no legal liability. Now, to me, I say, who in their right mind would inject themselves with such a drug, given that background? It's kind of common sense, right?
Right.
But the contract for the U.S. military was a $9 billion compact.
Oh my God.
The bureaucrat in government, the person who approves those kind of contracts, then leaves the government and goes to work for the pharmaceutical company that got the contract. It's a constant revolving door.
Right.
So if you look at the people who were the regulators, the people who made these decisions, and then they either go on the board of or they go to work for the very companies that they further enriched. It's entirely corrupt, and under Donald Trump, it's going to be outlawed. I think Robert Kennedy, as a health czar, I think in the end he's more than just the head of HHS, for which he's incredibly qualified. I think he's going to be a little bored, cutting ribbons and taking care of the Medicare and Medicaid systems, which are all pretty locked in, and that's kind of bureaucratic. But I think he's going to do great things. With the new head of the NIH, Dr. Bachari, I can never properly. But he's excellent. He's got a great record as a truth teller and as a medical, qualified medical expert, to say the least. Working with the NIH, working with the FDA, where you need complete reform on the process in which we approve drugs. And then, of course, there is the CDC, where we have to be told the truth about diseases, beginning with where they really came from. Remember, they tried to put me in jail for lying to Congress, supposedly about Russian collusion that never really happened.
Right.
So, gentlemen, you can't lie about something that didn't happen, right?
Right.
Anthony Fauci lies to Congress. He says, no, this virus was not developed in a Chinese lab, and it was not paid for by U.S. taxpayers. Except we have the proof that it did, that it was, and it did. So, but why hasn't he been prosecuted?
Yeah, good question.
Him. By the way, don't be surprised if before he leaves, Biden gives him an unconditional pardon.
Oh, yeah, pardons.
Sure.
That's a whole other topic we got to talk about in a little while. But before we do that, I want to go back to the changing of the mindset with respect to the drugs. And
then the other obvious thing, which is to say, when's the last time you saw a liquor commercial on TV?
Cigarettes, right.
Yeah, he's getting. Kennedy said he would ban that, right?
I think you should. I think we should ban drug advertising on the public airwaves.
Well, because like I said when I explained that, it prevents network news from investigating. The fact that they are making so much money off of these commercials that they air, they would never jeopardize that income stream with an investigative report that denounces the drug companies.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it in that way. The only thing I would say is they're not inclined to do that anyway, because those in the mainstream media are given to groupthink. If Dr. Fauci says it's good, well, then it must be good. I'm gonna go get my vaccination. You've seen a number of major news executives with the networks, suddenly drop dead.
Yeah.
Look at those stories. So, but they're not inclined to do so anyway. Here's the bottom line, which is we don't have a free, fair, honest press in this country. We did at one time. There is no balance in the media. The so-called media, these are not journalists, meaning they are there to push a point of view, to bury some facts, to create new facts that aren't really facts at all, to accentuate a falsehood, to bury reality. That's what they do. So just yesterday, for example, Reuters reports that at least 8 U.S. senators have reservations about the qualifications of former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard to be the director of national intelligence. That's not true. I'm a vote counter. This is what I do. I'm keeping track of where everybody is. There may be 3 senators who haven't made their minds up yet, and they may or may not have reservations. We don't know that yet. They also don't mention Democrats, and there are some Democrats who I think may vote for her. But she, because as the director of national intelligence, she would sit at the nexus where the CIA and the FBI and naval intelligence and so on all come together, and she will be able to tell us whether our intelligence agencies are impartial and non-political and fair, or whether, as I think we already know, they've been weaponized.
Right.
Well, they're trying to say she's a Russian asset.
That is absurd. On the basis of what? First of all, she's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve who served the country in combat in Iraq and Kuwait. So the people call Adam Kinzinger, the midget congressman from Illinois. I think here with that guy, by the way. You know, Adam, put your military record next to hers. Oh, serve in the military. You've never served your country. So just because she doesn't want to ship billions of dollars more to Ukraine, to question whether she's a loyal American, that's outrageous. By the way, as a lieutenant colonel, she has one of the highest security clearances already in the U.S. government. Right. So that is a false canard. And then this Reuters story saying that these senators are concerned that she doesn't understand the 702 program, the FISA warrant program. I've spoken to her about both at length. She understands them completely. But you see, what they do is they throw that out there so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. They try to be a stampede, which others will then report it. Or if you're a senator, you look at it and say, oh, I had a few questions, but I didn't know that 7 of my other colleagues feel the same way, when they really don't. You see the psychological game here that's being played. They're creating a false narrative.
Will Kennedy have a problem being approved, you think?
I think it will be an incredible fight. Not because he isn't fully qualified. He's extremely qualified. Mm-hmm. But because Fizer and all of the other big players are scared to death about what the coming scrutiny and I hate to say it, but regulation, new rules governing their behavior. So they're afraid of the gravy train because they've made billions, and the revolving door in which the people who make the decisions that make them billions go to work for them. This is all going to come to light. It's going to stop. So they're going to do everything possible to stop them. Now, the pharmaceutical lobby in Washington, D.C., Ameen lived there. It's very, very powerful. They give away tens of millions of dollars in campaign contributions through their PACs and through their executives. They have the most high-powered, expensive lobbyists in the city. Lobbyists are people who formerly worked on the Hill, and they know members and they know staffers because they worked there, and they left to go cash in. Most senators, when they leave, that's what they go do.
Yep. So going back to the mindset with respect to the drugs and the illnesses, in America stands alone in the world doing this. If, for example, let's say you have a fish tank, and the fish tank, the water's filthy dirty, and the fish are getting sick and dying. In every other civilized country in the world, what do? They clean the water and make the fish get healthy. Here, we give the fish drugs. We give the fish drugs process it through the fish's body, excrete even more toxins, which makes the water dirtier and more fish die. So, but that's what's normal now. How are we going to undo that to get to the point where we also ban the chemicals that Europe bans, that we also change the water and not give the fish drugs? How are we going to do that?
I think the way you do it is by changing the entire process. I mean, I answer your question with a question.
Drain the swamp.
Why do breakfast cereals in this country have dozens of toxic chemicals in them, But when they sell the same brand of cereal in Europe, those chemicals are illegal and they're not in the food. Why would they do that other than to bring down their costs and make more profit? So,
Right.
I mean, there's certain things. It's a legitimate role of government to ban things from food that are poisonous. That's what the government should be doing. The purpose of government is to be minimal, but also to protect us in those situations. This is something Robert Kennedy's been talking about. Something Callie Means, who, if you haven't read his great book, he's great. He was on my 77 WABC radio show last weekend. So I think we are not just going to make America great again. That means, and let's define that, to get this economy cooking so that people have jobs and opportunity, so that we have affordable housing again, one of the biggest problems in the country, whether you're trying to buy, which is impossible, or you're trying to rent where it's exorbitant. We need 850,000 new affordable Trump homes across America. I think that's going to happen.
Are Elon Musk's mini homes going to factor into that?
I don't know enough. I don't know enough to say. I will say this: Elon Musk is my favorite African American.
Are you guys tight? I mean, did you talk to him at all, Roger?
I have met him. I would not tell you that we are intimates. I admire him, and I'm very grateful to him because, as you know, when I was targeted in the Russian collusion hoax, a case in which we now know the judge withheld exculpatory evidence that would have completely cleared me from my defense attorneys. I was banned on Twitter just overnight. I had 980,000 followers, so almost a million.
I remember,
I woke up one morning and my profile was gone. I never even got an email, no notification, no letter, no nothing. And they wouldn't respond. I kept asking what happened here. Then days later, Facebook and Instagram, owned by the same company, Meta, they announce that I'm banned for life on both of those sites. And I remain banned today. Now, I'm in a restaurant the other night, and a guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Stone, how you doing?" I said, "Good. What's up?" He said, "Where's that crypto I bought from you?" I said, "Pardon me?" "The crypto I bought from you on Facebook." I said, "Dude, I don't sell crypto." "Yes, you do. It's on your Facebook page." I said,
"Oh, no.
I have a Facebook page."
Oh,
then you go to Facebook and look up the charming, handsome Roger Stone. There's a half dozen Roger Stones, and they're selling all kinds of stuff, but none of them are me. Yet, if I set a profile there tomorrow, it would be taken down.
Right. Wow. But I mean, if I'm not, if I think I'm correct about this, don't you want to go to Mars? I mean, I think you could get the hookup with Elon Musk, set up a colony.
Let me get my passport back first, and I'll.
Ameen wants to start. He wants to open the first Gold's Gym on the Mars, so maybe you can hook him up with that.
I'll go.
Roger. You know what? If Ameen doesn't stop driving me crazy, I'm going to send him to Mars myself.
Like Jackie Gleason, bang, zoom.
That's right.
Bang, zoom to the moon.
Alice. So
go ahead, John.
No, the fact that we've got to undo so much corruption, malfeasance, discoordinated actions, it seems like this is way more than a 4-year deal. How are we going to, all of what Trump and his cabinet are going to do in 4 years can be completely wiped out by a Democrat, getting back in?
Except for if the people are happier.
Right.
If you have a boom economy, if jobs are plentiful, if opportunities are plentiful, if money is plentiful, if you want to start a business or buy a home, if we solve the affordable housing problem, if we have no new wars where we're pissing away billions of dollars in conflicts where we really have no inherent interest, then we'll get 8 years. In fact, we'll get 12 years. We are about to enter, as I said at the beginning, a golden age, call it the Trump age, of peace and prosperity and security and justice and common sense. It's just common sense. So you're right. It could all be undone. It will be undone, by the way, if we lose the House to the Democrats. But what's the way to ensure that doesn't happen? Get this economy cooking. Who's the guy that knows how to do that? He already did it once.
So that's my we had all that. We had all of that. We had all of that during his first term. We had world. So why?
COVID ruined everything, John. That's that COVID.
So think about his position. He has built a boom economy. We have the lowest unemployment among every group: black, white, Hispanic, young, old, urban, rural. He has the economy is cooking. Inflation is low. You can borrow money. He's bringing in billions of dollars because of tax changes. So now people who took their money offshore to invest, now it's in their interest to invest in the United States. Everything's going great. And then the doctors come to you and say, you have a pandemic coming. The bodies will be stacked up in the streets. It will be like the Black Plague in London. Mr. President, millions will die within weeks.
It's scary.
If you do not destroy your economy by declaring a shutdown. Now, what does a leader do? He's not a doctor. He's not a doctor. He talks to the doctor. All the doctors tell him this is the way it is. He's forced to destroy his signature achievement. Now, that said, by election day, the economy is actually starting to pick up again because the fundamentals are still strong, low taxes, less regulation, and so on. And he gets back to the rallies. Remember, during the lockdown, he couldn't do his famous rallies. And the rallies are his campaign. He is the campaign.
Yeah,
sure.
So as soon as he starts doing the rally, he starts gaining again. So look, I think you're right. We live in a democratic system, at least for the time being, small d. There are those who would change that. Right. They have it backwards. If Trump had not won, you'd never would have had another election. Right. If Kamala Harris had won, they would have said no more elections. It's dangerous for the people. As Jerry Nadler said, we can't trust the voters to make these decisions.
We have 31 days left.
Scary, but right.
Roger, there's 31 days left. Do you see any possible problems? There's always this talk about they would do everything they can to not let him actually be inaugurated. Do you see any circumstances where that might happen?
Yes. I mean, look, when you just come out and say, look, my greatest single fear, which it is that someone will kill him, that they will attempt to assassinate him. Now, normally you would say, God, that's crazy. I mean, that sounds like a conspiracy theory, except for they have tried to kill him twice. And we really don't know anything about either one of those attempts because there are no answers. There are many questions, but there are no answers. Okay, in Butler, Pennsylvania, the federal, state, and local police were all on different radio frequencies, so they couldn't hear each other. Really? The Secret Service and the local police know that there's a man inside the perimeter with a gun who's already been seen with a rangefinder. They know for 92 minutes, but nobody tells Trump's immediate detail or the president himself. Under the Secret Service rule book, as soon as they knew there was a gun inside the perimeter, he was supposed to be evacuated immediately, but they didn't do that. Why? Now you're telling me that, first of all, it's a local policeman who first identifies the gunman on the roof, but just average citizens can be seen on videos. You can go to Instagram and Facebook. Look up there on the roof, a man with a gun right there. So,
yep.
This is not rocket science.
What about World War III?
And then the final part that's problematic is we now know that the government counter shooter gets the guy in his sights, sees that he has a gun pointed at the president, but he doesn't fire and kill the guy. He waits until he gets 8 shots off, then he kills him.
Right.
In the meantime, a local policeman does shoot, hits the guy and knocks him back, but doesn't kill him. Then the sharpshooter kills him. So why did that guy wait when the protocol, the rule book, and all of his training say, as soon as you see a guy pointing a gun at the president, you fire?
Right. Do you ever play that scenario through, Roger, and predict what would have happened, where we'd be now if Trump didn't turn his head 1 centimeter?
Well, I think, first of all, let's just go to the mechanics. If he had tragically been killed, it would not have been the end of the movement. In a strange way, he would have become a martyr for the movement. There would have been a huge outpouring of shock because he is, while he's very polarizing, the people in this country who like him love him, and we are the majority, and they love him. But the Republican National Committee would, if this happened before the convention, the Republican National Committee, actually before or after the convention, the Republican National Committee would have the authority to replace him as the nominee. They would have replaced him with J.D. Vance as the obvious choice. He was our candidate for vice president. And then we would have had to fight to get on the ballot in every state. In most cases, it would have depends that early. Most of the ballots were not set up or printed in the rare places where we still use paper. Would we have won? I think we might have still won because the public sympathy would have been enormous. People would realize this guy was killed because he was going to improve things, because he was going to change things. Most importantly, he would have been killed because he has pledged to close the border. So, but for turning his head at exactly the last second, in a millimeter of an inch, and what I think it really is an act of God, clearly an act of God, his life is spared for a greater purpose. Right. Now, after that happened, I've spoken to him a number of times after that happened, and you would think that a normal person would say, God, I hope they don't try to shoot me again. But Trump, he's serene. He believes correctly. He has been anointed for this moment, and then he wears the armor of God, and I think that's true. It turns out, ironically, that he will be a much greater president in his second non-consecutive term than he was in his first term, because he learned so much since then. Now, when he first got to Washington, he came from the world of politics, from business rather than politics. He thought that all the Republicans were with him, all the Democrats weren't. That was wrong. The Romneys, the McCains, the McConnells, the Rhinos were trying to undercut him at every step. They were in on the Russian collusion hoax. His own Justice Department authorizes the special counsel on the basis of nothing. The Russian collusion hoax is the greatest single dirty trick in American political history. It's the use of the authority of the U.S. government and the capability of our intelligence agencies utilizing two pieces of what they already know is fabricated evidence. The so-called Steele dossier, which is a report that Hillary Clinton cooked up and paid for, that claims when Trump was in Moscow on private business that he cavorted with Russian prostitutes. It's false. It's a complete lie. Or this false claim that the Russians hacked the DNC and gave their emails to WikiLeaks, to which there just is no evidence whatsoever. There just is no evidence that that's true. And there's certainly no evidence that anyone in the Trump campaign, including me, was involved in any such operation.
Right.
Are you going to buy InfoWars? Hold on. Are you going to buy InfoWars?
Well, I'm trying. This is a very strange.
Really? Wow. That's
why you got
a Blockbuster.
So I'm in an investor group that bid in the recent bankruptcy auction, and we have the highest bid. We have the best bid. In order to qualify to be a bidder, I believe you had to certify that you had a bank account, not that you could raise the money, but you had the cash on hand. I believe it was $8.5 million. And the thought was that the bidding could go that high. In the end, we bid, my investor group, in which I largely just have sweat equity because I'm still recovering from the Mueller assault.
Right. Yeah.
But I know all of the investors. I helped pull them together and to make a bid. We ended up bidding $3.5 million, and the guys who owned the Onion came along.
I thought the Onion had bought it. That's what I had heard originally.
Well, that's who the bankruptcy trustee first gave it to. But Dave, they bid $1.5 million, with the rest of their money coming from money they'll collect later from Alex Jones in lawsuits. It does not work that way.
No, you got to have the money up front.
We immediately went into court and we challenged that. A federal judge voided that award of the assets, but then throws it back to the same, I would argue, corrupted trustee. Why would the trustee not take the highest bid? By the way, that's his responsibility to take the highest.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so now he gets to decide what happens next. He's got two choices. We are the only other bidder. We should be awarded these assets. Or he could put it back out to bid and we'll start all over again.
But they don't want it to get back in your hands. They want to destroy it. Is that their goal?
They want to shut it down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The key point here is it's not even remotely about money. I mean, do they want to bankrupt Jones? Yeah, but it's not about money. It's about silencing him, which is stupid because if InfoWars disappears tomorrow, he's just going to go over to X, where when I did his show last Friday at noon, I had 850,000 people watching.
Wow.
Today, when I went back and looked, it was 1,000,006. 1,000,006.
Wow.
If you bought InfoWars, would you give it back to Alex, or how would you do? What would you do with it?
No, you can't. You couldn't do.
Alex is done.
I'm not give it back to him. Would he be working for you still?
No, he's not done.
Yeah,
well,
he's got no credibility left.
I just don't agree with that. In fact,
to
make the thing work, you would have to then employ Alex, which you're entitled to do. He can't own anything. He's still got these huge bankruptcy judgments that are against him and his old company that unless he gets overturned on appeal, which sooner or later I think may happen, he is liable for. But you can hire Alex Jones and the Alex Jones viewers respond to him in the marketing department. I mean, Dave, you know a little bit about selling supplements online, right?
Yeah, sure.
Jones is a genius at it. And his company is very, very, very financially healthy. They've done very, very well.
But of all the conspiracy theories to buy into, Sandy Hook was the most absolutely tragic thing that happened in this country.
But John, he was right about so much other stuff. That's the
but Sandy Hook is what sunk him.
He predicted 9/11. The guy. I mean, for God's sake.
I like him. I love him. I'm just saying that.
Here's my point. First of all, I don't agree with anything he said about Sandy Hook. All right, but we have a First Amendment in this country. You're allowed to say crazy, stupid things that aren't true. You're just allowed.
That's true.
Right.
It's not illegal. It's not illegal. So, I mean, they sue him in Connecticut where they're certain to get a liberal judge. The judge won't let him have any defense. You're not allowed to defense. We're not having a trial. You're charged. You're guilty. The only purpose of this proceeding is to figure out how much you're going to pay. And you know how much he has to pay? $1.5 trillion. Please.
What?
Yes.
Seriously.
Trillion?
Yeah, look it up.
With a T?
Yes, with a T.
Holy shit.
It's not really about money. It's about shutting him up, but you'll never shut him up. He'll just go to X or he'll start some new web-based site. His people, I know them because they helped sustain me in my fight. Many of them supported me in my fight for a pardon. So his people are extraordinarily loyal and they love him. Look, I don't agree with him about everything. We disagree on a number of things. We also agree on probably more than we disagree on. But the guy has heart. He works like a dog. He is a true patriot. It's not an act. It's not an act. So when you see the way he acts on the air, shouting and making goblin voices and so on, that's the way he really is.
He's very passionate.
That's the way he really is.
I got one more question I want to ask you. The drones over New Jersey. What do you think about those? What are they?
I think this is a government operation of some kind. Of all the theories that I've seen, and there's some people I know in the military who have expertise, who have credibility with me, tell me that somewhere along the way a nuclear warhead went missing. We don't know where it is.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I'm passing by David today.
These drones are being utilized to try to find it, to locate it, and they have technology that can do that. That makes sense. It explains why the government won't say anything, because they don't want a widespread panic about the missing. They call it nuclear material, but what they mean is warhead. Right. So that makes perfect sense to me. I would say this: Biden knows, if he knows what day of the week it is.
Day of the week, you know where he is at all.
And Trump knows.
Well, Roger, if there were,
you think Trump knows? Okay.
If there were to be some sort of nuclear war or World War III or anything, seems like things are going in that direction. I don't know, but could that stop Trump from being the president if there was to be a World War III or something like that?
Well, not legally. I mean, I've read the War Powers Act. There's nothing in there that gives the government the authority to suspend the new president taking office. If the Democrats could get control of the House between now and the election, between now and January 20th, which I think is highly unlikely, even though we just have a margin we have control by three seats, and they stole at least 4 seats from us in Orange County, California. Just no question about that.
Right.
You can go to my Substack. I've written about it extensively. Then they could refuse to certify his election. But when Trump urged Republicans to do that, they said that was an indictable crime, remember?
Yeah.
They would now be engaged in what they previously said was illegal. Jamie Raskin
wouldn't stop them.
well, Jamie Raskin, who's probably the biggest shithead in the Congress, whose father was a communist, who I think is also a communist, he insisted you can vote for Trump if you want, but we're just not going to certify his election on the basis that he's not qualified because he was involved in insurrection. Well, there's no judicial decision anywhere. He's never been charged with insurrection.
Right.
He's never been convicted of insurrection. So what you just heard is Raskin's opinion. But look, this guy lies about a lot of things. He also said before the January 6th committee hearings, the hearings would prove indisputable proof that I was involved in violence or illegal activity on January 6th. And that is a lie. Any claim that I knew about in advance, condoned or was involved in any illegal activity surrounding the 2020 election is just simply false, just not true. There's no evidence whatsoever to that claim. But he said that the hearings would prove that. The hearings proved nothing of the kind.
One last question for me.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Hunter's pardon.
Yes.
I don't think I have ever seen in my lifetime a more egregious act committed by any politician at all. There is absolutely, I mean, if it's kind of analogous to a presidential pardon can cover anything. If you killed 16 nuns and a busload of orphans, you could get a pardon, no problem.
Yep.
What Hunter Biden did, all of what he did, how can that possibly just go excused? And
I'm really glad you asked this question because you can go all over the internet and you will see people say Roger Stone and his wife evaded $2.3 million in taxes and that he wasn't criminally charged and he was allowed to pay it off. But Hunter Biden was charged and convicted of tax evasion. They're not even close to being true.
Right.
First of all, he failed to report more than $10 million of income. He never reported it. My wife and I reported every single penny that we'd ever made. We also accurately reported all of our meager assets. I was charged in a civil suit because I could not make payments anymore. The Mueller investigation caused me to lose everything: my home, my insurance, my savings, my electric guitar, which I had to sell to pay my lawyers, my car. I mean, I had some mixed things, but beyond that, I didn't own much. Therefore, yes, I do owe the IRS $2 million. But of the $2 million, 75% of it is interest and penalties. So I really passed the tax, which is from 2006, because I'm current for every year since 2006. 2006 taxes, it was down to about $400,000 when I simply could no longer pay. So no, I cannot evade taxes. It's a defamatory lie. Hunter Biden, on the other hand, failed to report at least $10 million in income, and they let that charge expire. He was never charged with that.
Wow.
Because a certain number of years, that charge expires. Now, in my case, when you're making payments, because they say we evaded taxes, Ameen knows this, I made a payment every month, 12 months a year for every year since 2006 without ever being late or missing a payment. That's not tax. That's paying your taxes with interest and penalties. Whereas in his case, he hid income, but they let the time frame expire so he couldn't be prosecuted for it.
But what about the bags of cash he picked up for the big guy, and the not registering as a foreign agent, the corrupt business deals he made in Ukraine,
the crack.
This is why they backdated the pardon back to 14 years to Joe's days as vice president. See, under the
protecting him
decision, he has immunity for illegal acts that he undertook while he was president. But there is no immunity for vice president. That's why the whole documents case never made any sense. They are accusing Trump of holding on to classified documents illegally at Mar-a-Lago, when the Presidential Records Act makes it absolutely clear the president can do anything he wants with his documents, anything at all. And the judge in my case, Judge Amy Berman Jackson, ruled in a case in D.C. that Bill Clinton could do anything with his documents he wanted, including keeping them in his sock drawer up in Chappaqua. But the vice president has no such authority under the act. Well, Joe Biden had in his garage and his office and in some warehouse in Chinatown classified documents from his time, both as a U.S. senator and as vice president, that he was not legally entitled to have. But we didn't charge him. We didn't storm his home in a raid in Rehoboth, as the way they raided Mar-a-Lago. The prosecutor, special counselor, said, yes, he did it. Yes, it was illegal. But, he's so out of it, we're not going to prosecute him.
No.
But by the way, the next day they say, and this is the guy you should reelect.
Out of it, he's non culpus mentis. He's gone. How is he allowed to still be in charge of the country? He is every time you see him speak, he's like, Dr. Seuss makes more sense than him. How is he not been, Article 12?
John, the alternative is to let Kamala Harris be the first woman president. They don't, that's worse.
At least she cackles.
But the same people will be running the country. So
Jake
Sullivan, the guy who knew that there was no computer terminal at Trump Tower connecting him to a Russian bank, but approved Hillary saying that and putting it out anyway, that guy, the guy who rounded up the 51 so-called intelligence agents who insisted that Hunter Biden's laptop had all the hallmarks of Russian information, that guy and Antony Blinken, your Secretary of State, are essentially running the country. And I think Dr. Jill is heavily involved. This happened before. When Woodrow Wilson was president, he had a debilitating stroke the last 2 years of his term. Because we had no media then, no television, no radio, they basically just hid him. He was never seen again. And she ran the country. It was time for decisions. They put a pen in his hand. She moved his hand on the paper.
Wow.
Edith Galt Wilson. She was the
Nancy Reagan, right? Also at the end, I'm sure.
That's really untrue. Now, was Nancy Reagan extremely influential? Yeah. Her husband valued her opinion because she would always tell him the truth, and she could spot somebody who was trying to take advantage of him from 100 miles away. But this idea that his Alzheimer's, which he did ultimately cop to and announce, was in full bloom during his presidency. I was with him in the fourth year of his presidency for extensive periods of time. He looked like what he was, a healthy 80-year-old man who was still lifting weights, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
No, he was very proud. He said he put an inch on his chest and an inch and a half on each bicep.
Yep. He watched his diet too. He only ate one serving at meals. He was
did not drink alcohol. Occasionally a glass of red wine before a television appearance because he thought it made him look like he had rosy cheeks. But other than that, he didn't drink alcohol. Very careful.
Roger hung out with him if he knows that information, John. Yeah.
Very careful about his diet.
Yeah.
Very
Roger, I want to thank you for joining us today. I really enjoyed this hour with you. You gave us some
fastest
great
hour I ever
information.
Folks can see all things Roger Stone by going to stonezone.com. Stonezone.com. You can hit the shop, do some Christmas shopping. You got your Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt. You got my book, The Man Who Killed
Ameen almost got arrested because of that t-shirt.
He was attacked by two leftists. He did.
No, again, I wore it, went to vote, and they were going to arrest me because I was wearing your shirt.
Yeah, I heard. But you were at Jamal, and you were attacked by two Antifas. And as I recall, you beat the crap out of one of them. The other guy ran.
That's right.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Roger, we really appreciate you paying attention to us and coming on our show, and it's really an honor to have you on.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm a big supporter of RXMuscle, and I'm a big supporter.
Nice.
I've used a couple of your supplements, and I like them a lot. And I recommend
anytime you need, just shoot me a text. I'll send you some stuff. On me. I appreciate it. You know, we got to get RFK Jr. on this show. You got to
that'd be
reach
great.
out to him. I mean, we need to ask him a lot of questions about health, fitness.
I would be happy to set that up. Now, right now, while he's pending confirmation, not doing interviews, that's
Yeah.
kind of the way it works.
Yeah, no, it's smart.
As soon
Yeah.
as he's confirmed, I will put you in touch with his.
That would
Awesome.
be so awesome.
That'd be great.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a lot to ask him. But thank you, Roger. Thank you, Ameen, for bringing Roger on. And
Yes.
thank you guys for joining us once again for the Palumbo podcast. We'll see you next time.